Hey everybody, Nancy here from American Pet Professionals. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to another episode of Digging into the Pet Industry. We are airing on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So wherever you're watching from, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're listening on a future podcast episode, thank you for listening. So I am thrilled to introduce you to our next guest, longtime member of American Pet Professionals, Diane Hyde, the president of the Long Island Parrot Society, otherwise known as LIPS, L-I-P-S. Hey, Diane.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me and the club.
Yeah, so listen, I'm so excited to have you, and I'm happy that you're here today. And here at Digging into the Pet Industry, we dig right in. So why don't we start with your background and a little bit about how you got drawn to working with birds?
Okay, excellent. I've always had a fascination with budgies, which are parakeets. We call them parakeets, but they're actually budgies, and all my life. And I had purchased a budgie from Parrots of the World. And when I took the budgie in for his wellness checkup, the vet had a poster on his wall for the Long Island Parrot Society. So I jumped into that, and that was the late 1990s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, it's an all volunteer club, and I've been volunteering now full time since 2010.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yes, it's more work than when I was working, but it's great.
Right? You're probably more passionate about it and have more fun than when you were working doing what you do at the Long Island Parrot Society. So before we jump into that, how many birds do you have yourself?
I currently just have one budgie. I
Okay.
do have a wonderful Quaker parakeet or monk parakeet named Cody, and
Oh, that's
your
so funny. I
Cody,
didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah. And unfortunately, my Cody passed away in this
Oh,
January.
sorry to
So
hear that.
yeah, yes, he was 16,
Oh,
which
wow.
is kind of middle aged.
Yeah.
Their lifespan is about 25 years. But we again, I do have the one budgie named Budgie. Wasn't very creative with that, but so that's it in the house right now.
Okay. Well, listen, don't feel bad. I had a cat named Kitty. So
There you go.
there you go. Right. So why don't you tell us what the Long Island Parrot Society is and what the organization really does?
Sure. Okay, the Long Island Parrot Society was established in 1985. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are registered with the New York State Charities Bureau,
Okay.
and our mission is to educate folks on the proper care of companion parrots. And we do that via our meetings, outreaches. We do have something called Parrot University, where we visit libraries.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, we just did one via Zoom this past weekend for Alley Pond Environmental Center in Queens,
Okay.
which was extremely successful.
So,
So again, it's all about letting folks know how to properly care for our lovely companion parrots.
so the Long Island Parrot Society University that you just did, is that like purely educational? Do you bring birds to each event? Like tell us a little bit about that because that's really interesting to me.
Right. So via the Zoom, it was great because we were able to bring our birds with us. They were
Right.
sitting in the box with us.
Yeah, yeah.
But in a regular in-person one, yes, we do bring birds with us so that the audience can get to see them up close and personal.
Okay.
So it's all good,
Yeah.
because yeah.
That's so cool. So you guys are educational, right? You also tell us who your members are. I know, is it a paying membership? Do people have to pay to be a member or they have to be a bird owner? How does that work?
Right. It is a paid membership. You
Okay.
do not have to be a bird owner. You have to be a bird enthusiast to have the interest to
Right.
join. And it's basically your, we don't use the word pet, but like it's for your pet bird owner.
Okay.
So, and anyone who is interested in owning a companion parrot. And we do have an adoption program.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that the folks who are interested in adopting are educated on how
Yeah.
to care for that companion parrot.
And you guys also host monthly educational events, correct? I know I've been to a bunch of them.
Right. Since COVID, that has slowed down. We picked everything up via Zoom. So what we did, instead of our monthly meetings, we now do it via Zoom, and we do 2 Zoom meetings per month.
Okay.
And we usually do have a presenter from whatever area of aviculture, could be conservation, a vet, behavior consultant. So always an educational type presentation. And our other little mini Zoom, what we call it, is just group participation.
Okay.
And speaking about what we're experiencing with our own birds and passing along helpful hints.
Very cool. So similar to kind of like what we do here at American Pet Professionals, but we're all business stuff. So that's really cool. And I saw that you guys were now going to be hosting in Sayville. Is that correct? Are you going
That
to
is
start
correct.
doing the in-person events again?
Right. We're doing in person on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
And we are also, even though we're doing it in person, it is available via Zoom. The Zoom was so popular, especially for our members who are out of state.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Yeah, even though you have the Long Island, like we started out as Long Island, but then we started getting people from states all over the country. And I was like, so Zoom is an amazing tool, right?
That was a silver lining of COVID. If you could say that. We also have partnered with 2 sister parrot societies in Connecticut.
Nice.
So we share each other's Zoom meetings. So it's an opportunity to keep learning, and you get to meet other people. So it's wonderful. It's all good.
Can anybody attend the Zoom meetings, or is it just for your members?
It's just for the members. It's a perk of becoming a member.
Perfect.
And we do have our newsletter that is sent out either electronically or paper version. If it's paper, we were trying to get away from the paper, just for the environment. But if they do want paper, we asked for a little bit more money with their membership to help defray the cost.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So getting sponsors for the newsletter could be helpful if you wanted to do any kind of print, because that does get very costly. So I know that you mentioned you have speakers at your events. Can you tell us a little bit? Because I think I've been to 4 or 5 or 6. I feel like over the years I've been to a bunch. I try to go once or twice a year when they were, in person before COVID. And you always had really fantastic speakers giving presentations. Can you tell me how you guys curate that?
Right. Excuse me a second. Pardon me. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Get a sip of water.
Yes. Well, one of our board members is our presenter we then, because of our affiliation with the Connecticut folks, if they have a presenter, we're like, maybe not all of our members saw that. So we then kind of piggyback off of that. We're also very much into conservation. So we will just ask a representative from a certain conservation group to come and speak, because it's important that we have the parrots in our home, but it's important to know where their cousins are in the wild, what part of the world, what are they facing, and are they extinct, are they becoming endangered? So it's important that because we have a wonderful parrot, we like to make sure that the cousins are doing well in the wild.
I love that they're cousins. Yeah, it's really important. Like, is their habitat being destroyed? Is their forest being cut down? You see all of that. So I love that you guys do that. It's really important, because I think we have that disconnect as pet parents. Like, you might have a bird, but you might not be thinking about all the other things that are going on where that bird came from. So I really love that you guys do that.
Right. Yes. And then when we do the outreach is when we do either the Long Island Pet Expo, whether it be at Tanner Park or at the college. We try to say to these people, this is an African gray, and where in Africa is it from? Or like a little monk parakeet. Where are they from originally? They're from Argentina. So it's like fun facts that people get to know, because people always ask, where do the monk parakeets, how they survive?
Yeah.
Winters. they're from Argentina, which is the southern hemisphere. So their climate is very much like our climate.
Yeah, the fact that we're on Long Island for anybody that's watching or listening, the fact that they're basically all over Long Island at this point, you can see them anywhere, is really kind of mind-boggling because we never saw parrots as kids, right? But now, like, I'm out walking the dog in a regular park and you hear the monk parrots making a ruckus in their nest, and you see a bunch of them. You also see people posting, this must be somebody's pet bird, it was at our bird feeder. And like, so the awareness still isn't completely out there that they are here, they are wild. So I am curious to see, of course, we don't want global warming to continue, but I'm curious to see in another 10 or 15 years what other birds might come up and stay,
Well, there you go. I know in England, they're having an influx of wild Indian ringneck parrots
Okay,
in
wow.
Hyde Park around London and what have you. So, and also the monk parakeets, they found their way from Argentina to
Wow.
the different parts of the world. I
Yeah.
mean, it's big in Spain. Spain doesn't particularly care for them, but you know, um, it's amazing how they've adapted.
Yeah, it really truly is. And I know we were talking before we went live that, they have platforms posted for ospreys because the ospreys migrate right up here to New York and everywhere else. And they have all these platforms. But in the winter, the platforms are empty because the ospreys went back down south. And I said, Diane, why don't they create monk parrot platforms or nesting areas? Because they do go on the telephone poles or like the cell towers. So if anybody has any insight that's watching or wants to help out with that, I know you said somebody was trying to start it, but I think that would be a really great thing that an organization can put together, especially locally here, and get them from a cell tower. And you see their nests; they're ginormous. They're like halfway down the telephone pole, which I can't imagine is a very good thing.
Right, yeah. They're the only parrots that actually build those types of communal nests.
Wow.
And a fun fact, in Wantagh Park in Nassau County on Long Island, on the osprey nests, the monks have made their nests underneath the
Oh,
osprey.
that's funny.
Yeah, so they're making the osprey nest even bigger. But
Communal housing.
and the
Interspecies communal housing.
there you go. And it was thought that the monk parakeets were invasive. They're
Yeah.
not invasive. They don't hinder the natural birds,
No.
the indigenous birds that are here. And it is fun when we get the phone calls for someone from Lindenhurst. I have 10 of these green parrots at my bird feeder. I'm like, yay, lucky you.
Yeah, I know.
They're no one's birds.
Yeah.
They're, the wild or naturalized. We're now calling them naturalized Quaker parakeets or monk parakeets, and enjoy them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great to see. I feel like just all the wild birds in general in the last 10 years, the last 5 years here on Long Island has been incredible. The influx of bald eagles and the hawks and everything. Everywhere you go now, you see them in suburbia walking around. So I love to see that. It's really, really interesting. And the monk parrots are a lot of fun to watch because, they're just causing a ruckus over there, making a lot of noise, doing their thing. Okay, so let me ask you this. This is kind of a different question, but in your years of experience working with Long Island Parrot Society, what is a misconception of being a bird parent or owning a bird?
Well, isn't that a good question?
I like to stump my guests.
Yeah, it's that they're easy, or that they don't need stimulation or enrichment,
Right.
and they certainly do.
Yeah.
The parrots, all birds, as we know, are very smart, especially the corvids like the crows and the ravens.
Yeah.
But parrots are exceptional in their intelligence.
Mm.
And there's a woman in Florida. She runs a program called Parrot Kindergarten. And I don't know if you've seen it recently on the news, where her parrots, or she did a paper, would interact with like an iPad or tablet. Say they would communicate via a tablet, and they would get to call other people, whether there be humans or other parrots, from this communication board.
Wow.
And one of the parrots even writes her name. It's amazing. I think
Yeah.
one day we're going to be the ones who are fighting to build nests.
Right, right. Listen, I believe it. I used to back in the day did pet sitting, and I had a client and they had an African gray parrot who I was terrified of because he was mean until he got to know me. He would like smash his water bowl and like just throw stuff out of the cage. I was like, dude, I'm giving you fresh water, fresh stuff, But the longer I would take care of him, as because it was, like every weekend for many, I think like 2 or 3 years, he got to like really be calmer. But so I understand that it's not easy, right? But he was so smart. He would call the dog, he would call the old pet sitter by the name, he would imitate me. I got him to do a couple of things, if I
Yeah,
was cleaning with all natural, nothing toxic for the birds, like around his cage. He would make the squeaky noise, like as I was,
yes,
it was just hilarious. I
yeah.
was always a little afraid of him because he had that big beak.
There you go.
So
There you go.
give me a give me a 200-pound dog, I'm not going to be afraid. But a little parrot, I was a little afraid of.
Nancy, I hear you loud and
Yeah,
clear. Because
yeah,
even I'm intimidated by
yeah,
some of those beaks because the beak is such an important part of a parrot's life.
yep,
And they, especially the bigger birds like the macaws, they can break open a Brazil nut like nothing. We're
yeah,
like still trying with the nutcracker and stuff to open up a Brazil nut. They're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Touch." So yeah,
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, they're definitely strong birds. And then, I was scared of him, and then I got to be respectful, and then I just love that bird because he was just such a riot. They had a huge sunroom, so I would open the door and I would wheel his cage over so he could listen to the other birds and he would imitate the other birds. It was just really funny. But I love that you said that it's not always easy. So, in that same respect, what kind of advice would you give somebody who is thinking about bringing a parrot into their home for the first time?
right. Yeah. Well, if there's a novice and then the novice says that they would like a macaw, we're like, no, because
Why?
the macaw is the big one, with the
Right.
with the long tail and stuff.
Hmm.
Because people would have to really be educated on
Mm.
what it's like to interact with a macaw, because or an Amazon or any of the bigger birds,
Yeah.
because we want to do our best for the bird. Because if the bird comes into our home and we're not properly educated and something happens and that bird turns around and bites you,
Mm.
you can lose a finger. You,
Yeah.
if it hurts one of the children at home, that bird is never coming out of the cage and he's going to be rehomed.
Aw.
So a lot
Yeah.
of times, that's why birds are rehomed. So
Hmm.
when people are novices, we always say, think of the beak, pick your beak. Um, some people are fearless, but parrots are, they're like, I don't care
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're fearless or not. And we get a lot of that when we do outreaches where people go poking at a parrot. And I'm like, please don't poke at a parrot. Because
Right.
I don't care if he bites me. I'm like, well,
We
we
do. Right. Yeah.
care if
Yeah.
he bites you because we don't want the parrot to be upset. And there you go. There goes the insurance. So but yeah, we oftentimes encourage folks to join us and then speak to people who have various birds in various situations, meaning, do they have children in the home or different pets in the home? And the fact that no matter the size of the bird, they're all prey, meaning that they think they're going to be eaten 24
Right.
hours a day.
Yeah.
So we have to be respectful when we have the predators in our home. And we're even considered predators. So when you have your
Hmm.
dog, your cat, your ferret, your snake, um, so we have to be aware of how comfortable the bird would be in the home. So it's, again, it all goes back to education.
I love that. And it's so similar to even just picking out a certain dog for your family. It's very similar in your family lifestyle. How many people are coming and going in and out of the house? Are they going to know to shut the cage? Like there's the door open, like all the things. So that's really fantastic information. I love that pick the beak, right?
Exactly. Exactly. 'Cause,
So I would I would say, like, if anybody's watching and they're like, "Hey, I really wanted to get a bird," is to definitely visit, your website, and we'll put that at the end. But I just think that there's so much great information on there and education, and
Yes.
really educate yourself before you go in and buy a bird or even get a bird that is up for adoption. Because they are work, but I think there's definitely a lot of rewards to having them. Can you talk a little bit about some birds living a lot longer than others and a potential bird parent that wants that bird that's going to live a long time?
Exactly. And the bigger the bird, the longer they live. So the bigger macaws in the Amazons, they're good for around 80 years.
Wow.
And then when you get a little bit smaller, like the African grays are probably about 50 to 60 years. The
Wow.
cockatoos are the big white ones are good for 60 years. So if someone of a certain age is even looking to say, oh, I want to buy a baby macaw, we have to say, well, what is the plan? What's the plan for the future?
Yep.
And when people do complete our adoption application, they have to submit a questionnaire and we ask them, are you financially able to take care of a parrot? It's not cheap.
Hmm.
And who is going, you're the primary caregiver, who's the secondary caregiver, and who is the caregiver after the primary and secondary caregiver for some reason don't make it home. Um, you know,
Yeah.
they've gone off to Mexico or something, but who is going to take care of that bird?
Hmm.
And we oftentimes would suggest that people make up a trust or make a trust for them in their wills.
Yeah.
Or there, lately, there's more organizations that are formed that will help with the help with the parrots after the humans are no longer here.
Yeah.
So that's one of our um, presenters that we are going to get in the hopefully in the near future. So because that is so important. So it's great to have your companion parrot because they are just part of the family. They're not just sitting in their cage. They are coming out. They are interacting. We suggest getting involved with a behavior consultant. Sorry, a behavior consultant, so that we understand the parrot better. Because the parrot is kind of smarter than us when it recognizes body language.
No
So,
bird brain there.
so if someone calls you a bird brain, it's a compliment. So,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, I just think, I feel like people don't realize how smart they actually are, right? Just seeing some of the videos. I remember like such a long time ago seeing the video of the parrot picking out the different colored objects.
mhm,
There's a guy on TikTok that he asks his parrot, what is that made of? And the parrot
right,
feels it and he tells him what it's made of, what color it is, like all the things. So, and that might seem elementary to some people, but your dog might not be able to do that. My dog will pick out even though dogs can't see color as well, will pick
mhm,
out, the green treat ball over the purple treat ball when I tell him to. But that's very rare that you have a dog that knows the
yeah,
difference, right?
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think that the knowing and understanding that is really, really important. So when it comes to, you talked about bird behavior and are there like specific bird trainers that are behaviorists?
Right. So basically, a lot of the behavior consultants are based on applied behavior analysis, which I think was Dr. Skinner. So
Okay.
it's something you probably do with Cody now. It's um, you you base everything on positive
Right.
reinforcement
Yes.
as opposed to punishment.
Yes.
Punishment doesn't work. So it's the same with and it's the same if you're talking about a bird, a fish. There's someone who's working with a fish, a beta fish,
Yep.
right now, and it's amazing
Yeah.
what can occur. But definitely parrots need 5 minutes at a time. I remember with my Cody, I taught him one time to turn around and
He got it.
he got it. And
Yeah.
it's almost like he was a spinning top after a while. I'm like, well, stop. I didn't ask you to do that. So that's
Yeah, yeah,
behavior
yeah.
I don't want until I ask you.
Right,
So
right.
um, they don't need like hours of training per day.
Yeah.
It's a limited amount of time, like a couple of times a day, and they will get it.
Yeah, it's really, it's really amazing. I have an aquarium. I've been a fish keeper. I joked at Global Fish Mom for like 2 years, and I have one beta in a community tank, and she's way smarter than all the other fish, much more inquisitive. That's why they're so popular, probably. Just really pays attention. Like it's hilarious. And I'm like, I don't have time to train a fish, but I'm not surprised that somebody's doing that. I have seen some videos of, teaching certain fish to, go through an obstacle course and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And I just think that, if you take that little bit of time, that positive reinforcement, like you said, your Cody would spin, 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 even when you didn't ask, right?
Right.
My Cody, my dog, will wave all the time. And I'm like, all right, I didn't ask you to wave. Because
Because but if I wait, there's going to be a treat, right, Mom?
Yep, exactly. He's very treat motivated. So it's really cool. What about veterinary care? Do you recommend veterinarians that cater to our feathered friends? Are there specialists that are bird veterinarians?
It definitely. Those are your exotic vets. So
Yes.
exotic vets treat exotics like reptiles, but also our avian
Hmm.
members of the family. And there are some board certified avian vets on Long Island. We're very lucky on Long Island to
Yeah.
have the board certified plus vets that do have training in avian medicine. I mean, some states there are none. So they
Yeah.
have to actually drive to another
Right.
state. So it's important also to have you have your parrot wellness checked at least once a year. And while you're at home, you weigh the bird every week and you keep a chart. So when you do go to the doctor, to the vet, I know my doctor used to say, "Where's Cody's book?" Because I had a
Yeah.
book, like a loose leaf binder,
Yeah.
with all the information. It's easier for the vet, and also he just don't throw the bird in a carrier. He has to want to go into the carrier so he doesn't get stressed out. I guess like any animal would do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, exotic vet is the way to go.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people with experience, and I think anybody, if you have to board your parrot, if you're going away, I think there's a place on the east end of Long Island that did that for a while. But make sure that you find a pet sitter that has experience with parrots. We have a few that are really experienced with parrots in our organization locally here, but I'm sure there's some that are outside of the state as well. That are members that do that also. I'm thinking of a couple of people are popping into my head right now that I'm saying that.
That's cool.
Um, so let me ask you this. Are there any laws in the US that prohibit certain birds as pets? Do you know of that?
Yes. In fact, many states do not allow monk parakeets
Oh, wow.
in the state, and we're surrounded by those states: Connecticut,
Hmm.
New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And you cannot have a companion parrot because they feel it will become invasive. They don't want a flock of monk parakeets, even though I really don't think that they would destroy New Jersey's farmland.
Right.
Yeah, because we did have in the United States a parrot that was indigenous to our area,
Hmm.
and that was called the Carolina parakeet. And it was the farmers that got rid of those in the late
Mm,
1800s. So yeah, so there are some where it's illegal to cross state lines.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah, because of uh, the Endangered Species Act. So you could only if a parrot is endangered in its native land, you have to be very careful about.
Interesting.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, so if you're like thinking of going on a road trip with your bringing your bird along, you might want to look up all of that and research all of that. It's really important. Not that I think the authorities, if you got pulled over for a speeding ticket, would even have a clue about that. Not being rude, I'm just saying that there's so many laws that they have to pay attention to. They might not know. But I would definitely do your research if you're even thinking of just, going to stay with a friend for a month in Connecticut or something,
yeah, you're
and
right.
you want to bring your bird because that you don't want to have to deal with any problems with that. So definitely do your research. It's just like anything else, traveling with a dog. We were just talking about that on another show I was on last week with Dr. Nelva Bryan, and talking about when I did a road trip with Cody, I had to make sure there was no breed specific legislation anywhere that I'm driving. And, for the most part, that's all being turned over. There are still areas, but you always want to check that. So that's really good. Okay, so here's a question that is not so fun. What about the bird flu? Has there anything to know about that as a pet parent that wants to own a parrot? Because there's a lot of news about the bird flu, but I feel like it comes and goes over the years. But right now it seems to be in the news more often.
Right. Yes, and it hit Long Island more this
Yeah.
time around, and it came up with the migratory waterfowl.
Okay.
And maybe the particular waterfowl wasn't affected; they were asymptomatic. But they then, wherever they landed, they infected whatever was around, and that's why out in the Midwest with the chickens and the eggs and everything else, we, the club, do not have people bring their parrots to outside outreaches to help so we don't put our parrots in danger. There was one parrot on Long Island who did die of the avian flu. There's been so many eagles, hawks, owls.
I saw that. Yeah, so sad.
On Long Island. So and we want our members to follow a biosecurity protocol, meaning the avian flu is spread through, and you have to forgive my language, via poop. So and look at all the Canadian geese and everything else around.
Yeah.
So if you're walking through geese poop, and you come home and you walk in your house with it, you're now infected your house. And if your parrot is walking around on the floor like African greys like to do, you're putting them in danger. So we are trying to avoid putting our parrots in danger by taking them out. If people want to take their birds out, we caution, don't let them on the ground. Don't let anyone else touch them or handle them. And when you come home, take your shoes off and possibly even
wipe them down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I was thinking about that the other day when I was walking Cody and there was geese poop, and I was like, should I not be walking him here? I'm like, it's like we walk it all the time. So I you don't know what to think. So it's kind of crazy. Wow. So that's really good information. And I think, live your life, but be cautious, right? Do all those tips and same type of thing, and keep your birds out of harm's way. I don't think it's that difficult to do, right?
Well, there you go. There you go. Exactly.
Let's talk really quickly about some of the ailments that could happen from like certain pans or cleaning products really quick, because a lot of people don't know that.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Yes, there are dangers in our home that will affect our birds negatively. And one of them are the non-stick cookware. It could be Teflon, which I don't think they're making Teflon any longer. But any of the non-stick cookware, if overheated, the fumes you can't detect the fumes, but the fumes that come from that can kill your parrot. Any Febreze freshener, any plugins, any candles, anything that causes an odor, because that's an oil-based odor. So when it gets into the parrot's respiratory system, they have lungs, but they also have air sacs. So if the oil droplets stay inside of them more, and it can be very detrimental. And also certain foods can be detrimental. The parrots, they love to eat what we're eating, but not everything we're eating is going to be good for them.
Right.
Most of the time, it's not good for us. So they're like, people don't think about ceiling fans. If you have your ceiling fan on, if you have your toilet cover open, if a bird falls in your toilet, it can't get out. And obviously, keeping your doors closed or being aware of where your parrot is when you leave the house, because we get too many calls about lost parrots.
Yeah, I see the post regularly for a lost parrot. Yeah,
and it's on a rare occasion that they're reunited.
Yeah, which is really sad, and I again, it goes back to, it's not easy being a parrot owner or a parrot parent, right? So you have to think of those things into consideration. And by the way, I don't think the nonstick pans are good for humans either.
I was going to say, if it's going to kill your bird, what's it doing to us?
Right. Use some stainless steel, guys. You could do it.
Yes, exactly.
It's not that hard. But yeah, definitely. So let me ask you, is there anything that I didn't ask you about the Long Island Parrot Society that you want to add or about parrots in general?
Hmm. I think off the top of my head, which not much left in there, that I think we covered a lot.
Yes.
I encourage people to reach out to us. We're a great resource for everything parrot. So if you have a question, please, you don't have to be a member, reach out to us. And we'd
Yeah.
be more than happy to answer your questions or your emails, and just point you in the right direction, because parrots are so special. They are so long lived that people need to know.
Yeah, I love that. And I have one more question for you. So I know you guys are local to Long Island. You have people outside of the state that tune into your Zooms now. But I feel like you've been around for what, like 38 years, I think you said, right? In the beginning, something like that. But I go to all the trade shows, right? And I go to Global and Super Zoo and all the other ones. And when they have like bird, vendors there and stuff, sometimes they'll say, "Oh, have you heard of the Long Island Parrot Society?" And a lot of times they say yes. And I'm like, what are you guys doing to get that marketing out? Because I think you're doing a good job. There's been a couple occasions where people are like, "Oh yeah," and they start naming people, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" And they're from like, nowhere close to Long Island.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's probably from Long Islanders moving
Ma
to
No,
different.
I'm telling you, I've spoken directly to people that are like, one lady was in Florida and she was like, "I've heard of them," and somebody else was somewhere else. I don't know. It just seems like you guys do a really good job with your marketing and getting the word out there.
Yeah, well, we definitely. I don't know if it's a marketing ploy on our end, or it's or whether it's just like a passive type thing, that because of our members moving to different states and
Mm,
maybe talking about us, or if they have a parrot and
yeah.
then they say I used to belong to the Long Island Parrot Society. But excuse me, we are hoping for the future to have the first shelter on Long Island
Oh,
devoted
wow.
to parrots. It's going to take a lot, and that's where mostly our fundraising goes to,
Yeah.
is building up our shelter fund. So, and this way we can hold classes in whatever building.
Yeah, you could do all kinds of things there. That'll be amazing.
Yes, that's something that we're looking forward to hopefully make happen in the not too distant future.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you can find an empty office building somewhere now that everybody works from home.
There you go. You know what? And that's what we were hoping for.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds bad, but you know what I mean? It's
No, but I mean, there's enough places that I'm sure you could find something, but I think that would really be cool and have a place that people can come to and learn about parrots and potentially adopt a parrot and all the things. So I wish you luck with that. I hope that happens soon. I'll be excited to hear your progress on that. Well, listen, Diane, it's been wonderful to have you on today. You're our first guest that we've been talking about birds with, so it's very exciting to have you on. I know you've been a member of our organization forever, so I of course appreciate that. Yeah, somebody posted a resource center. Yeah, it would be amazing to have that here on Long Island. So, and people could come in from out of state. The one thing we didn't talk about is that you were hosting the Parrot Expo every year forever. Are you still doing that? Are you bringing that back?
this would be the first year since 2019
Oh,
that we're
wow. Yeah.
going to have Parrot Expo. It's not going to be in Freeport where it
Okay.
initially was. It's going to be a smaller concern. We're doing it at the VFW in Sayville.
Okay,
So,
nice.
yeah, so we're kind of dipping our toes back into the water.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, a lot of the vendors had either stopped doing business via traveling to bird shows,
Right.
or retired. So we don't have the amount of vendors that's going to draw the attendance, because people use the expo mostly for shopping.
Right.
So, but we hope to have a different type of expo, a little bit smaller,
Yeah.
but the same concept, but just in a smaller.
Well, that's great. I will, if I'm in town, if I'm not traveling, I'll definitely be coming to that. I'm excited that you guys will be in Sayville, a little closer to where I am.
Yeah, that's going to be on October 14th.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah.
14th.
Very
Yeah.
nice. So, and if anybody's a bird, vendor and they're watching this and they're like, wait a minute, we want to know more about that. How can people reach you?
Okay, they can either call us at 631 888-957-1100, or they can email us at info@liparrots.org, and our website is liparrots.org. So,
Awesome.
so and our website is wonderful. Like Nancy was saying, it's just full of great stuff.
Yeah.
So, very, very proud of the club. Very, and that's why volunteering as much as I do, it's all good. It's
Yeah.
all good. It's all for the sake of the parrots, because it's important that people know what it's like to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, it's been a lot of fun. I learned a lot today because there's things that I didn't know about, being a parrot parent per se. So I appreciate your time today and for you being here and letting people know more about your Long Island Parrot Society. And guys, if you're watching, reach out. We put the links in the comment sections so you can go and check out the Long Island Parrot Society. You could join their group on Facebook and find out more. So, Diane, thanks so much for being here, and hopefully I'll bump into you soon.
Yes, Nancy, thank you so very, very much. So, you know me, I could talk all day about this. So, it was a pleasure getting to share. So,
Yeah, it was
thanks.
wonderful. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.